Greetings and salutations. This is in place of Pandora the Great. I am Vampira, Mistress of the Night. I'm here with our nightly bedtime story from her favorite poem of night. It is the complete tales and the poems of Edgar Allan Poe. And tonight we shall be reading the Cask of Amontillado. Which is page 733. The thousand injuries Afortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insults, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length, I would be avenged. This was a point definitively settled, but the very definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It's equally unaddressed when the avenger fails as to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither word nor deed had I given Fortunato a cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had weak points, this Fortunato. Also, in regards, he was a man to be respected and even feared. He prided himself upon the connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity to practice imposture upon the British man. Was a quack. British and Australian millionaires. In painting and gemmary, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack. But in the matter of old wines, he was sincere. In this respect, I did not differ him materially. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and brought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk, one evening, during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had the tight-fitting pant strip, hardship dress, and his head was summoned by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I had thought I should never have done wringing in his hands. Wringing his hands. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible! And in the middle of the carnival." "I have my doubts," I replied, and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price, without consulting you in the matter. You are not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain. Amontillado. Amontillado? I have my doubts. Amontillado. And I must surely satisfy them. Amontillado. As you are engaged, I am on my way to Luchesi. If anyone has critical turn, it is he. He will tell me. Luchesi can't tell Amontillado from sherry. Hey, okay. And yet, some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go to your vaults, my friend. No, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. It's easy. I have no engagements. Come, my friend, no, it is the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with nitre. Let us go, nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado! Oh, you have been imposed upon. And as for Luchesi, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado. Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm, putting on a mask, a black silk and drawing reliquary closely upon my person. I suffered him to hurry me to the palazzo. There were no attendants, hence at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time I had told them that I should return. until the morning, and I gave them explicit orders was not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. And I took their sconces as two flambeaux, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. He came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe," said he. "It is further on," I said. "But observe the white web-work which gleams from these cavern walls." He turned towards me and looked into my eyes, the two filmy orbs that distilled the room of intoxication. "Nitre?" he asked at length. "Nitre," I replied. "How long have you had that cough?" My poor friend found it impossible to reply. For many minutes. "It is nothing," he said at last. "Come," I said, with decision, "we will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as once I was. A man to be missed. For me it is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Oh, besides, there is Luchesi." "Enough," he said. "The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. Hey, hey, I shall not die of a cough." "True, true," I replied. "And indeed, I had no intention of alarming you, though unnecessarily. But you should use all proper caution. A draught of Murdoch will defend us from the damps." Here I knocked off the neck of a bottle with which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mould. "Drink," I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips. With a leer he paused and nodded it to me familiarly. While the bells jingled, "I drink," he said, "to the buried that repose around us, and to your long life, and I to your long life." He took he took my arm, and we proceeded. "These vaults," he said, "are extensive. The Montresors, I replied, were a great and numerous family. I forget your arms. Yes, a huge human foot, or in a field of azure. The foot crushes a serpent, rampant, whose fangs are embedded in the heel. Yeah. And the motto? Nemo me impune lestis. Good, he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes, and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Medoc. He had passed through the walls of piled bones, with cask and puncheons intermingling the inmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. "The nitre," I said. "See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed, and the drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will go back ere it is too late. Your cough. It is nothing," he said. "Let us go. But first, another draught of Medoc." I broke and reached him a flagon, flacon of the grave. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with fierce lights. He laughed and threw the bottle upwards with a gesticulation I did not understand. And I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one. "You do not comprehend," he said. "Not I," I replied. "Then you are not of the Brotherhood." "How?" "We are not of the Masons." "Yes, yes," I said. "Yes, yes. You? Impossible! A Mason?" "A Mason," I replied. "It's a sign," he said. "It is this," I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my reliquary. "Ah, you jest!" he exclaimed, and recoiling a few paces, "but let us proceed to the Amontillado." Uh, and it is so. "Be it so," I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak, and again offering him my arm. He leaned and upon it heavily. He continued our route in search of the Amontillado. Oh, he passed through a range of low arches, descended a path, and descending again, arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our flamboy rather to go dim than flame. At the most remote of the crypt there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. The sides of the interior crypt were still ornamented in this matter. From the fourth, the bones had been thrown down, and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound, and of some size, within the wall, thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior recess, in death upon our 4 feet. And with the in height 6 or 7, it seemed. It had been constructed for no special use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacomb, and had backed by one of the circumscribing a walls of solid granite. It is in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored and to pry into the depths of the recess. It is termination, and the feeble light did not enable us to see. Hey, proceed, I said. Here then, it is the Amontillado. As for Lucchese, he is an ignoramus, interrupted my friend as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. Because it is an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arresting by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. In a moment more I had fettered him to the granite. It is in its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. Hey, from one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Yes. Pass your hand, I said, over the wall. You cannot help feeling the nitre. Indeed, it is damp. Once more, let me implore you to return, no? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you the little attention in my power. The Amontillado, ejaculated my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied. The Amontillado. Oh, it is. As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I have been before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon recovered a quantity of building, in stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of my masonry. I had discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato, oh, I had great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long, obstinate silence. I laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth. And then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which I might hearken to it with the satisfaction I had ceased my labors, and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed the trowel and finished without interruption the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh tier. The wall was not nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the flambeau over the mason-work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained in form seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated, I trembled, unsheathing my rapier. I began to grope it about the recess, but the thought of an instant reassured me. I had placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs, and felt satisfied. I reproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. I aided. I surpassed him in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamorer grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the ninth, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th, and remained but a single stone to a fitted plaster. I struggled. With its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came from out underneath a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice. I had difficulty in recognizing it as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "Ha ha 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 ha, hee hee. A very good joke indeed. An excellent jest. We have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Hee hee, hee hee, over our wine. Hee hee hee. The Amontillado, I said. Hee hee hee. Yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will we not be awaiting us at the palazzo? Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone." "Yes," I said, "let us be gone." "For the love of God, Montressor!" "Yes," I said, "for the love of God." But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, "Fortunato!" No answer. I called again, "Fortunato!" No answer still. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came in return only a jingling of bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make the end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up against the new masonry. I erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. And Pacus rescats. I hope you enjoyed your bedtime story. And, as well, as they say, rest in peace.